In the quiet town of Juniper Cove, Alaska, a group of high school juniors eagerly anticipated their annual wilderness field trip. Each year, they were taken into the Alaskan wilderness to learn about survival, wildlife, and above all, the beauty of their home. This year, 17-year-olds Lucas and Riley found themselves paired for the trip. They were close friends, and their classmates often teased them about being more than friends. Both brushed off the teasing, but anyone could see there was a deep bond between them. The bus rumbled down a narrow, winding road, cutting through thick forests under a cloudy sky. The air was crisp and biting as the students stepped out, their breaths visible as they eagerly pulled on gloves and tightened their scarves. Their guide, Mr. Hayes, was a seasoned survivalist with a knack for storytelling. He gathered them in a semicircle, setting out the plan for their hike. "Stay with the group," he said sternly, his eyes narrowing in the way they did before a good story. "This place is beautiful, but it's unforgiving if you get lost. These woods have been here long before any of us, and they don't take kindly to strangers." The group set off, winding through dense trees, the crunch of fallen leaves underfoot breaking the otherwise eerie silence. After a while, Lucas nudged Riley and gestured toward a small, glimmering stream trickling nearby. The sun had briefly emerged, and the light hit the water just right, making it look like liquid silver. "Let's check that out," Lucas whispered, his eyes gleaming with excitement. Riley hesitated, casting a quick glance back at the group. "You know we're not supposed to split up. Just for a second," he insisted. "They're not going far." With a reluctant smile, she followed him toward the stream. As they reached the water, they marveled at the reflection of the trees in the water, distorted but mesmerizing. Minutes slipped by unnoticed, and when they finally looked up, the group had vanished into the trees. "Oh no," Riley muttered, realizing how far they'd wandered. Lucas glanced around, his grin fading. "It's fine, we'll catch up," he said, though his voice held an uncertain edge. They started walking back the way they thought they'd come, only to find themselves deeper in the forest. Shadows fell over the trees as clouds thickened, the light fading with each step. A chilling breeze whispered through the branches, and the air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and pine. Just as they were beginning to panic, a low, guttural growl pierced the silence. Lucas and Riley froze. Their breaths hitched as they scanned the darkening woods, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" Riley whispered, clutching his arm. Lucas nodded, his face pale. He tried to convince himself it was just the wind, but another growl echoed, closer this time. Then through the trees they saw it, a massive grizzly bear. It stood on its hind legs, towering above the shrubs, eyes bloodshot and foaming at the mouth. Its fur was matted, its body scarred. This wasn't just any bear, it was rabid, wild with sickness. "Don't move," Lucas whispered, his voice barely audible. But the bear had already seen them. It let out a furious roar, its teeth bared. Flecks of foam sprang into the air as it dropped back down onto four legs, its focus trained on the two of them. Every instinct in their bodies screamed to run, but they knew they couldn't outrun a bear. Lucas looked at Riley, his eyes filled with desperation. "Split up. Maybe we can confuse it." Riley hesitated, fear stark on her face. But as the bear took another lumbering step toward them, they nodded to each other. Lucas ran left, darting into a cluster of bushes, while Riley took off to the right, weaving through the trees. The bear paused, sniffing the air, and turned in Lucas's direction. Hidden in a dense patch of shrubs, Lucas watched as the bear zeroed in on him, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. He held his breath, trying to be as still as possible, but his heart sank as the bear's head shot up, nostrils flaring. It sniffed the air and lumbered toward him with terrifying speed. Lucas tried to move, but his foot caught on a branch. He stumbled, and before he could regain his footing, the bear was upon him. It swiped a massive paw, claws raking his shoulder. He screamed as he raised his arm in defense, but the bear sank its teeth into it, the searing pain tearing through his body. With a desperate, adrenaline-fueled cry, he kicked at the bear's chest, managing to loosen its hold just long enough to roll away. Thinking he was dead, the bear turned, now drawn to a faint sound coming from above. Riley was hiding high in a tree, clinging to the trunk with trembling arms and legs. She'd seen everything, the horror, the blood, and now the bear was coming for her. She frantically tore off her shoes, hurling them at the beast, hoping to scare it away, but the bear barely flinched. It rose on its hind legs, paws scratching at the bark as it tried to climb. Riley inched farther out onto a branch, praying it would hold her weight. But the bear was relentless, its foam-flecked mouth snapping as it clawed its way closer. The branch creaked and bent under the weight of the girl and the grizzly. Just as it lunged for her, the branch snapped, They both plummeted, a mix of fur, limbs, and snarls tumbling through the air. Riley hit a dense bush below, her body protected by its thick branches. But the bear landed headfirst on the ground beneath, its neck twisting at an unnatural angle. It let out a final shuddering breath and lay still. Riley lay in the bush, stunned, bruised, but alive. She pulled herself up, every muscle screaming in pain, and staggered toward the clearing. Blood dotted the forest floor, leading her to where Lucas lay slumped against a tree, his face pale and twisted with pain. His right arm was mangled, his shirt soaked in blood, but his eyes lit up with relief when he saw her. "Riley," he rasped, his voice weak. She dropped down beside him, fighting back tears. "We have to get you back. Come on." Together they leaned on each other, moving through the forest in agonizing steps, every rustling leaf and snapping twig sending jolts of fear through them. The shadows grew darker, the forest seeming to close in as they struggled to find their way back. At last they stumbled into a small clearing, where the faint sound of voices met their ears. Mr. Hayes and the other students, frantic with worry, spotted them. Relief and horror washed over their faces as they saw the two bloodied, battered teenagers emerge from the woods. Riley collapsed as the teachers rushed to help them, and Lucas, clinging to consciousness, managed a weak smile. They were safe, but the memory of that day would haunt them forever. They had survived the wilderness and the beast that lay within it,